Hello and happy Valentine's Day. Today we're making alfajores. This is a South American Latin treat. So I wanted to try something new but still classic. So treat yourself and let's go. So here's the butter. We're gonna just smash this down. It's room temperature butter. And if you've never had alfajores, it tastes like a shortbread cookie and a sugar cookie mixed together. So we whip the butter till it's smooth. Then we add red gel food coloring. I like red gel instead of watery food coloring because it's more potent in color and it doesn't change the texture of any dessert. And we're gonna add vanilla bean. You can add extract if you don't have vanilla bean, but I love vanilla bean. So we're gonna whip that together. So I really like adding the food coloring early. So adding it to the butter is my preference of choice. I can tell if it needs more food coloring and it won't be streaky after adding all the ingredients. Make sure that you remove any excess butter from your spatula or whip. So we add the red food coloring, add more if necessary as you go, and whip it. So we're going to keep mixing. And now we're going to add lemon zest. And whip that in. Then we're going to add ginger powder. And whip again. So this recipe calls for egg yolk. Finally, a recipe that's only egg yolk. So at least when you're making a meringue or Swiss meringue or Italian meringue, you have something to use the egg yolk with. So we're going to add the first batch of egg yolk after we separate it from the egg whites. So I doubled this recipe, so I'm going to add the first set of egg yolk and then later add the second. And then we're going to whip that in. So now we're going to add the salt, baking powder, and baking soda and whip that in. And now we're going to add the cornstarch and powdered sugar. This is going to make the dough very dry, but remember, we still have more egg yolk to go. So now, after we dust ourselves off, whip this in as much as we can. This is a very dry dough, I gotta say, but it comes together beautifully and is very crumbly like a shortbread, like I said. You get the best of both worlds. So now it's very sandy, as you can see. So keep going as much as you can until all the powdered sugar and cornstarch hits the butter. This process is much easier if you use a mixer, but for this demonstration, I'm showing you by hand, so you know you can do it by hand. So now we're going to add the extra egg yolk to loosen this up. So now we're going to add flour. Again, this dough is very dry, but keep going. I gotta say, since it's wintertime and this is Valentine cookies, the butter is more solid than usual than say summer, even though it's still at room temperature. So if you're doing it by hand, you may need to finish kneading the flour in. If you're using a mixer, then you can just add all the flour. But by hand, it's more work. But I'm up to the challenge. And then I think I'm gonna just knead it on the counter. It's dry enough, but still somewhat soft. So just keep adding flour. If you did this in a mixer, again, you could just use all the flour. The weather is affecting this dough because it's dry usually. And since we're in the winter time, since we're making Valentine's Alfajores, we may not need all this flour. So keep mixing it in. So just keep rolling and keep kneading. Until it feels right. The dough should not be sticky. Again, it's kind of dry like, almost like Play-Doh. Beautiful. So we did not need all the flour, but we still need more just to roll it out. Usually I roll it between two parchment papers or between a plastic wrap. But again, since I'm not using all the flour, I can do it this way. But since I'm doing this by hand one, and I didn't use all the flour too, I can get away with this. So using my cutter, I'm using a hard cutter about 1.5 inches. You want a nice size for the cookie, but not too big. And then gently lift up the cookie. And place on your baking sheet. And reshape if it misshapes. So keep cutting and place on the baking sheet. So now we have all this excess dough. We can roll it out or put it back together, wrap it in plastic wrap, and then place in the refrigerator. So we're going to bake this at 320 for about 15 to 16 minutes. And then perfection. It's so crumbly and delicious and buttery, you can eat it by itself. But we're not done. To get the perfect alfajores sandwich cookies. So now we're gonna use Dulce de Leche. You can make your own or you can just buy it. So we also have a pastry bag. This is 16 inches, but you may be able to get away with 12. So first we open the bag. If you've never used a pastry bag, you just pull it back until you can reach the bottom. Since we're not using a piping tip, we're not cutting the tip of the bag first. We're just opening it. Then with our spoon, we want to make sure we have room down at the bottom of the bag. Then we scoop up a dollop, a good amount of dollop, into the bottom of the pastry bag. And we add more. And then when the bottom is filled, we pull up. Almost like the Flintstone pull-up pops that we had at childhood. It's like that. Just keep pulling up. So keep adding more dulce de leche. And keep pulling up both hands. So the bottom to grip, the top to pull up. Then we untangle, we put it back straight, we push down the dulce de leche as much as we can, and then we're going to cut the edges. First, we got to maneuver which side is down and which side is up for the cookies. We want to look for the best possible cookies up, and the ones that have a little ridges and streaks and lines, we want at the bottom. So pretty top, ugly bottom. And of course, we want enough to go together. So the pretty ones on top and the uglies at the bottom. That sounds so bad, but it's true. We want a pretty dessert. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now we're going to cut the edge of the pastry bag so we can start piping. After we cut the tip of the pastry bag, push down slowly. So if you've never piped before, for a heart shape, usually you put a lot of pressure at the top and then thin out at the bottom. And then you do it at both sides. And then you close the sandwich. You don't want to overfill. I mean, if it's just for you, why not? But if you're sending it, gifting it to anyone, especially your Valentine, then I suspect you want it to share. And to share, you can't overfill. On to the next. Let's do a couple in a row. Pressure at the top, then out at the bottom. And then you cover it and press down gently. You don't want the dulce de leche to come out. And then press down. So just keep going. A lot of pressure at the top, then at the bottom. And then you press the cookies in between the dulce de leche to have a Valentine Alfajores cookie or sandwich. So now this is just extra, because why not be extra? So now we're just gonna add some sprinkles. You can dip the sprinkles, which is a better method than what I'm doing. Or you can add coconut, which is the tradition for alfajores cookies in South America. So you add the sprinkles to the dulce de leche edges and you set aside. And there's a lot of ways you can decorate this. You can use glitter. You can use melted chocolate to dip. You can use anything your heart desires. You can design the top. Maybe add a be mine with some royal icing. Again, you can do anything you want. You can drizzle some chocolate. Even for the filling, you can add ganache. You can add puffed marshmallow. You can do anything, but I stick to tradition. And here are the alfajores. So I hope your Valentine loves these treats. I know I will. Visit whippedit.com for more recipes. Thank you for visiting Whipped It. Follow our page, sign up for our newsletter, and thank you. Whipped It and happy Valentine's Day.